أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Viewers, you welcome to the program Our Pledge. This program is dedicated to the conditions of initiation into Islam Ahmadiyya, the true Islam. On last week's episode, we spoke on the fourth condition, which was causing harm to any creature of Allah, be it human or animal. We are privileged to be joined today by Mr. Abdul Hamid Issa. Mr. Issa is the Circuit President of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Mission at Chimota Circuit here in Accra. He was the former Vice President of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Mission Youth Wing, Majlis Hudamu Ahmadiyya. You're welcome to the program, Mr. Issa.
Thank you very much.
Today we are talking about the fifth condition of initiation into Islam. Ahmadiyya, what is it?
Basically, it is among the 10 conditions that Hazrat Mahdi alayhi salam, the promised Messiah and Mahdi, laid down as a way to initiate people into his community. And I will take it as you have asked. What does it say? It says that he or she shall remain faithful to God in all circumstances of life, in sorrow, in happiness, adversity, and in prosperity, in felicity and in trial, and shall in all conditions remain resigned to the decree of Allah, and keep him or herself ready to face all kinds of indignities, sufferings in his way, and shall never turn away from it at the onslaught of any misfortune. On the contrary, he or she shall march forward. Briefly, this is what the fifth condition of Bai'at has called on us to do.
It says in all circumstances.
In all circumstances, man in general, or man in particular, has been created according to the Holy Quran to worship Allah. So what these conditions wants to tell you is that at any particular time in your life, whether everything is going smoothly for you, whether you are very healthy, whether you are sick, whether you are having trials as to money for spending in your daily activities, or whether you are in a state where you don't have it, whether a have or a have not, under every circumstances of your life, whether at a particular time in your life, because of your faith, people have come against you. Are you going to renege on your faith? No. In other times of your life, you meet situations where in our present day, Islam itself becomes a ridicule for others. Do you look at such conditions and say, oh, let me try to hide myself from this, my faith? What it is saying is that whether in poverty, in prosperity, or under any circumstances in your life, be it adverse, be it good, one is ready at all time to remain steadfast in the worship of your Lord.
If I'm a parent and my only child dies, should I have to remain close to, faithful to Allah? Don't I have to go somewhere to seek help?
Once again, I will go to the Holy Quran for us to answer this. Sometimes the conditions of our lives as Muslims call on us to make sacrifices, or sometimes we think that because we are Muslims, because we say we believe in Allah, everything must move according to the way we want it. But we have been admonished in the Holy Quran, and let me take the chapter for you. That is Surah Al-Ankabut, that is chapter 29, verses 3 and 4. And I will take them. It says that, do men think that they will be left alone because they say, we believe, and that they will not be tested? Just the simple saying that I believe in Allah will not let you go without the tests of life. And it continues to say that, and we did test those who were before you, like we tested those who were before you. So Allah will surely distinguish those who are truthful, and He will surely distinguish the liars from the truthful. I want to make an analogy here. When you go into a competition, let's say high jump, you know what happens is that a height is set for people to jump, and whoever is able to jump over it is taken as the winner. So in our lives, we will meet obstacles which we will have to what? To overcome. Like you have mentioned this issue of somebody who has lost their child.
The only child.
The only child. If we go into the life of prophets, if we go into the life of saints, people who had dedicated themselves, people who had been appointed by God Himself for His work. Let's take the case of Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam. In his lifetime, he lost almost all his children, and especially his male children. None of them outlived the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But we all normally think that we will be what? Inherited by our male child to perpetuate our life.
Yes.
But he, who was the best creator, and it is said that it is because of him Allah has created this earth, but he suffered the pangs of death of his children. So the death of a child, whether the only child or a child among others, should not be an impediment in one's way of worship. Like it is said, we will be tested like those of old were tested, which means that people who also said they believed in Allah had to also go through some of these tests. So Hazrat sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who would have needed male children to perpetrate his progeny, lost all his male children in his life. So this tells you that when these things happen to us, we should reflect about those believers of even higher quality than us, compared to us, did also suffer it. So if we are those who believe in Allah truly, we should not be taken backwards, or we should not be seen to be in a sort of pain and never letting go because we have lost a child.
So if you lose your only child, you have to remain steadfast to the cause of Allah. That is because of Allah that I've lost my child, so I don't have to go consult. Because you know, in our Ghana situation, people normally go to consult for their adversities, their trials, and whatnot.
If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself, who has created you, has told you in his book, that is the Holy Quran, that just to say that I believe is not enough. You will still be what? Tested. So when these things happen to us, we should take lessons from verses of the Quran, from the happenings to believers before us. We don't need to go anywhere, because no man has created another man. So in this case, no man can be the reason for the perpetuation of the life of another or the end of it. So to go to another man, to question him, or to seek some protection over the life of a child is to indulge in idol worship, in that you are going to consult somebody who has not brought man on earth. It's like you have your television set. The television set is no more working. Then you take this television set to a man who has never even seen a television set in his life, so that he will be able to tell you why the television set has this or that problem. He doesn't even know what it is. So no human being has created us. So human beings cannot be the results of our living or our death.
So, Mr. Samasai, if a man goes through these adversities, trials, and whatnot, can we say that he's been punished by Allah because of his sins?
No, not at all. Once Allah himself has told us in the Holy Quran that we are going to face trials in our lives, we should be able to know that happenings in our life that do not go as to the way we would have liked, like you mentioned the death of a child, to have failed in an exams when you think that you should pass and get promoted, or you should pass, come out and get a job. When these happen to us, maybe it is because of poor preparations for the exams. If it happens to you that you have not been able to pass your exams, you just don't straight away feel that Allah in his finite wisdom is punishing you for one or two things. Maybe sometimes in our life, a failure opens a different door for you. You were trying to move in one direction. Because that door is closed for you there, you took another direction and become more successful. So sometimes these happenings in our life are to strengthen us, to give up, to give out more, to persevere, because it is said that when there is no pain, there is no gain. So when you meet trials in your life, it gives you more belief that I might need to up my worship. I might need to do more than I was doing. I might need to give more time to my studies than I was doing. I must be somebody who should take better care of my life. If you have a house and you have dirty bowls, you are supposed to clean them and clean them thoroughly. If you fail to clean such bowls and they get infested and you eat from them and you get a disease, basically it is out of your what? It is out of your own negligence. So sometimes some of the happenings in our life are not punishment that Allah himself has brought onto us. Sometimes it is our own hands, it is our own inability to ensure that we do certain things in the right way. But this is not to say that, as Allah has said, there are trials in life. But when we meet those trials, we have to let them be things that will help us to be better, to fight harder, to worship more. But in the case of punishment to people, like those who disobey prophets and do not only remain in their disobedience, but turn out that they are going to put more impediments in the way of Allah. Once Allah has declared in the Holy Quran that it is He and His messengers who will always prevail, if you become a stumbling block in the way of a prophet of Allah, Allah can wipe you out. So in that case, you might suffer certain consequences out of that action. In that case, it becomes a punishment.
In the case of Hazrat Omar, the second Caliph of Islam,
yes.
he was a form of stumbling block in the way of the Prophet. But
yes.
along the way, he conformed and he became a Caliph of Islam.
Yes, I think you are referring to the situation when the message of Hazrat Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was in its
early
stages, where it is said that Omar was a very strong opponent. But how did he get converted? He get converted when he listened to the words of Allah and saw the beauty of those words and realized that such a message is good for the prosperity of man. So his earlier character was out of ignorance. But when he had the opportunity to listen to the Holy Quran, then it softened his heart. And as such, Allah was able to what? To transform him. But if he had remained as some of the others, like Abu Jahl, who persevere that they are going to continue the way they want, then they are the people who incur the wrath of God, and that becomes punishment for them.
Viewers, you saw on the program Our Pledge. On the program, we bring you comprehensive insight into initiation into the fold of Islam Ahmadiyyat. Today, we are joined by Mr. Abdul Hamid Issa, the Circuit President of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Mission, Achimota Circuit here in Accra. Mr. Issa, the story is told of a man who lost all the children, including the wife, though the man was a missionary. And a few years later, he lost his sight. Can we say that was his test for believing in God? Or?
That is a very huge trial, one may say. Nobody can underrate such a happening in the life of a man. Somebody who loses all the members of his family.
One day.
And later on, he himself became blind. You know, there is a hadith to the effect that most of these things that happen to us sometimes are opportunities to wipe out some other sufferings of tomorrow. So definitely, the higher one meets them, the more one is going to enjoy or to be of much benefit, to be a beneficiary, or Allah will be able to give you more on the day of judgment. For a believer, nothing untoward happens in your life without Allah using it to clear maybe some of the inactions or some of the shortcomings that might have come your way. So I believe such a person who has got such a big trial will be amply rewarded in the day of judgment if he is able to remain steadfast and see them as big trials that Allah had given him. In the morrow, he will also get a very big reward.
Allah said in the Holy Quran, chapter 2, verse 156, that he will test man with adversities, trials, and whatnot. When this happens, should man still remain steadfast or go astray?
When one meets adversities in your life, they should be able to toughen you. And like the verse I read from Surah Al-Ankabut, when Hazrat Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was given the message that he was a messenger for the whole of mankind, for 13 good years, when he launched the message to his immediate surrounding, what happened to him and his early followers. Some of them, pregnant women, were torn open. Some of them were tied between two camels and then
they were forced to move.
Yes. Some of them were made to lie on top of very hot sun. So many atrocities that even one time in a battlefield, the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself was not spared, to the extent that he was covered in blood. And then the message even got out that he, Hazrat sallallahu alaihi wasallam, had lost his life. Nobody will then be able to say that as a believer, when trials come your way, it should turn you back. Because after these 13 years, the Prophet had to migrate to Medina. And these enemies followed up to fight him and his little followers. Like the number of his followers were not many. But as he persevered and had truth on his side and continued to admonish to the people the good words of the Quran, the need for them to worship Allah alone, who is their creator, he ended up becoming the leader, both religious and mundane leader of the society, to the extent that people who do not even believe in Islam were forced, were not to say they were forced, they saw the beauty in Islam and accepted him as their ruler, though they were not Muslims. So these sufferings that you come across, these trials you come across, if you remain steadfast, if you persist in the worship of your Lord, then there is something good for the morrow. That means that in a little while, in a long while, one becomes triumphant. And then you can see that when you become triumphant, like Hazrat sallallahu alaihi wasallam became triumphant, then you could see that the condition also mentioned that when, let me see that what it says there is that in prosperity and then felicity, sometimes we are prone to forget that we had labored, we had suffered, we had gone through a very big trial until Allah makes things, conditions favorable for us. If we don't reflect, then when we become prosperous, we might become forgetful. So like I said before, there is no gain if there is no pain. But when you get the gain, always reflect that this came through some pain, so that you will be able to be measurable in your behavior. You don't become extravagant. You don't become forgetful and stop to worship maybe because you think that you have achieved your aim in life. So whether in prosperity or in adversity, the condition is calling on us to remain focused and march forward in our worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
When a prophet is sent by Allah to his people, he is usually accepted by the low in society. The rich become overly arrogant. They tend not to accept him. But he with using the low people, he tried to succeed. How do you tell the masses, those who are watching us, to do in case they are afflicted with any of the adversities, the trials, the punishment, whatever?
Basically, in life, things might start in a very small way. When you mentioned the issue of the higher placed people in society, finding it difficult to follow the teachings of a prophet, one can say that it is because of the inherent nature of man to remain superior and to remain the master. You can see that before the appearance of a prophet in a society, there are those people who are of higher class.
Yes.
And when they are in the higher class, they control those in the lower class. When a prophet of Allah comes, he has come for all of them. And he has come to ensure that the person, the creator of both the jinn and the ins, when I mention jinn and ins, that means the important men, the men of
the
higher
VVIPs.
class. Yes. And then the common men all worship Allah. But the sovereign authority now lies under the bosom of the prophet. He becomes the imam. So the higher in the society find it difficult to let go
His pride.
his pride. He thinks that if I accept this man, that means that my position, where I was the authority over these downtrodden, I am going to lose it. But for the downtrodden too, because they are already in a very difficult state, where mostly these people higher there are not treating them fairly. When the prophet calls for a society of fair treatment, where nobody should hold the other as a slave, they are able to find it as a common ground or a happier grounds that is being set by the prophet for them. That is why you see them able to quickly accept the teachings of the prophet, because the prophet's teaching are such a way that it does not oppress anybody, whether you are rich or poor. But the richer people, because they know when they accept him, they will have to let go some of their sway that they had over the lower people. They find it very difficult. And this one you can even see in the case of Adam, when Iblis refused to accept Adam as somebody who Allah has commanded him to obey. And what did he say? He said that he was better. He was better created, and he was created from fire, whilst Adam was created from dust. So he feels that he is more important, and thus he became arrogant. And when he became arrogant, he became despised of Allah's mercy. So that is why in all our lives, whether we are among the upper class or the lower class, we should shed off every arrogance in our life and remain humble.
This condition also talks about decree, that whatever happens to man, it is the decree of Allah the Almighty. Yeah. But man only takes the good side of the decree. When good things happen, yes, this is from Allah. But when the bad ones come, it is not from Allah.
Yes. You know, the Quran says that whatever of evil that befalls us is from our own hands. It is because sometimes we forget or we refuse to follow the dictates of Allah, which is the establishment of justice. If we are able to ensure that we establish justice, and when I'm talking of justice here, I'm not only talking of legal justice where two people go to court and then the case is called and one is said to have been
one and the other.
When we talk of justice, it comes into every aspect of life. Like currently, our environment in this country came under severe attack because of Galamsey. We were doing a very, very serious injustice to our climate. And as we do this, if not today, but tomorrow, these things that we have done to the climate or the topography of our land, cutting off wind and sun indiscriminately, contaminating our water bodies. A time will come when these same water bodies will carry diseases to us. And as it is in mining, mercury and other things are used to do the sedimentation and everything. These things will go into the water bodies that you end up taking into your system. And this body is not to take certain things like mercury and other bad chemicals that will come in there. So when I talk of justice here, I mean to do things in a fair manner, whether it is between man and man, or even man and animals, and also man and his environment.
And this even have connection with the fourth condition of Islam, of Ahmadiyya, that says we shouldn't cause harm to any creature of Allah.
We shouldn't even cause harm to the atmosphere. We shouldn't cause harm to our environment, because when we do, it will come back to us. Then, if it comes in the form of, let's say, because people are not disposing of excreta and other things well, it comes in the form of cholera. And we might then cry out, are we under punishment? But you can see that at the end of the day, it is because of our own actions and inactions.
Mr. Issa, your final words.
What I would like to say is this, that when it comes to conditions of Bai'at, these are the things that will make us different. Hazrat Mahdi alayhi salam did not establish these conditions just for nothing. You can see that each and every condition here has a place in the Holy Quran. So what he wants from us is to establish this in our daily life, so that we will reflect the true teachings of Islam, which at the end of the day will make others, whether Muslims or non-Muslims, see some beauty in us that becomes attractive to them, so that they will have the desire to be part of this community. That is why when you follow the Friday sermons of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih, Ayadahullah Ta'ala bin Nasr al-Aziz, his only want from us is to be good Muslims. And he normally says it that when we become good Muslims, that will serve as a stronger tabligh to the outside world than any other thing. So we should not take these conditions of Bai'at for a joke. At least we should always try to read them and get this book that Hazrat Khalifatul Masih himself has written on these conditions, so that we can be able to live up to them. If we live up to them, we will live up to the
commands of Allah.
And if we live up to the commands of Allah, we will become better Muslims.
We thank you so much, Mr. Abdul Hamid Issa, the Circuit President of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Mission Achimota Circuit here in Accra, for joining us on the program. This has been me, Abdul Hamid Amponsah, here in Accra. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Kamantun kabatuhi na venkumoye. Kamantun kabatuhi na venkumo. Mantanka batuhi na venkumo nana. Ah.